Well, hello, and we're back to another solo endeavor of the Husky Introvert Believer. This is the Husky Introvert Believer himself, Ariel, speaking to you. I mean, you would know this by now. We've done three of these so far. Sorry for the slurring. Tired, but that goes with the territory thanks to, well, we already mentioned before, we're not going to beat a dead horse. Sleep apnea, overweight, not being able to sleep, all that nice stuff that happens to us all, the enlarged people. But that's not your concern. I mean, it's not like you're asking for this information. This is like too much information. Thank you. Can you talk about something else? I'll try. Can you go to the next subject? Okay. What is the next subject? I don't know. I kind of do these at a whim. Just like Indiana Jones said, I make this stuff up as I go along, which is not a good formula to do a podcast. But I guess one of the things I was thinking about talking about, like, we call this the Husky Introvert Believer podcast, or not the podcast, but that's the name, Husky Introvert Believer. I've already talked about the aspect of faith, and to spare you the details and not bore you further with that subject, I decided to talk about the introvert part. I mean, on old episodes of the Husky by Boo podcast, when I did them solo, I think I talked a good chunk about that there. But, like, do you want to go cherry pick and see which one of those is? And by the way, by the way, listen at your own peril, because language, let's just say language. Yeah. I mean, it's been a journey. It's been quite a journey to get to the point where I am right now. Looking retroactively at the stuff, as the expression goes, hindsight being 2020. You see stuff in the past, you're like, "Hey, I shouldn't have gone there. I shouldn't have done that." Probably the best choice or best course of action would have been probably pick something else to do, but not that. But then again, if you're going to second guess every decision in your life, you're going to end up doing nothing. Because the options scare you and you freeze and you do nothing. And doing something is better than doing nothing, because nothing then produces nothing. And something, I think you already get the subject. You get the idea. I don't want to keep repeating myself. Anyway, so back to the whole introvert thing. Uh, I've always known that I'm a weird person. I mean, some people that might know me in person might not think that I'm weird, but maybe because they've gotten to know me better and I've opened up to them a little better. But to the general consensus, people that might have known me for the longest of time can attest to the fact that I am not normal. For better, for worse, I am not normal. And what can I say about that? Well, I'm an introvert due to reasons. I mean, maybe this is the chip that was installed in my brain, and I am what I am, as Popeye the Sailor Man would say. Or maybe past traumas, which I'm not going to bore you with details about trauma and whatnot. But yeah, stuff happened in the past that probably maybe exasperated this way of being for me. Maybe, I don't know, not sure. The thing is, I'm never been what the normal consensus would be of normal. Then again, who is normal? I don't know what that is, who that is, or who to whom that may apply, because we all got some sort of weirdness inside of us. And as I would say in church, we're God's mess. So that's God's job to deal with that mess. So I don't try to get into that with other people, but I will get into it with me, because I'm the one that I have to deal with. I am the one that lives with this. Pointing at myself here. I know this is not a visual podcast. Hopefully, it will be one day, but as of now, it is not. So you have to do things, give you your visual cue so you can understand. Anyways, so yeah, introvert, been that way for a while and realized it from a young age that I wasn't necessarily what you would call the norm as a child. I always knew I was an odd duck. I just had no idea what level. I had no clue at what level I was the odd duck. And it wasn't until a little over 10, 12 years ago that I did a personality test and the Briggs Myers test. And I came up with the result, and I had to do this was before the taking those online tests were free, mind you. I'm talking about 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. When people weren't so freaking greedy and doing those tests. Now when you try to do those tests online now, guess what? Pay up. They'll charge you up front. Talking about the good old days where things were free. Plus, DR, Pirates of the Caribbean, that actually never stopped. We just evolved with time. Anyway, what a nice segue. Anyway, so yeah, no, I didn't do Pirate because it was free. It was free. Nowadays, I guess you would have to go that route, but you can't do that here unless you have other options. But we're not here to educate you in the ways of hacking. We're here to tell you about the introvertness, okay? So don't let me help you that way, because I'm just going to incriminate myself any further. Not that I know. Allegedly. Pleading the fifth. Anyway. So once I took that test, I came up, there's a result as INTJ. And that was very fascinating to me, because when I took that test, I realized, okay, what is this? And that opened a whole new door for things that I did not know about myself. But I kind of knew, but I didn't, there was no name to it. I didn't put a name tag to it. That finally gave me an identifier of what I'm actually am. Then it turns out that type of personality is only in 2% of the planet. So I was like, oh, great. I'm unique in a very special negative way at the same time. I'm unique. Great. Wonderful. Excellent. And socially awkward, sarcastic as hell. Like if you haven't noticed so far. I hope you haven't noticed so far. I guess you just take all my words for granted. This robust and beautiful personality to deal with people. And one of the first things that came up, in jobs, in terms of job descriptions, things that this type of personality is good for, everything said, all the job description is he likes to work alone. I was like, no, no, not really. Really? Wow. Me working alone? You're crazy, right? Like me, I like working alone. I don't want to be bothered. I like to be alone. Really? Me like solitude? That is sarcasm for those of you who didn't get it. Anyway, so all of that was a revelation to me. It was and I couldn't shut up about that thing for that test for a month. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that this is who I am. And it spoke a lot of things. That was the first time. Look, I'm an introverted person. I'm introspective to the 10th degree. But even people like me, miss the mark or miss the cues from here and then. And I missed my cues a long time ago. And it took me the longest time to realize, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And that helped me, to understand what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses, and work on my weaknesses. What are my weaknesses? I don't socialize well. I really don't. And if people might think that I socialize better now, well, part of it I can attest or give thanks to my wife, because she's helped me a lot in terms of how to socialize with people and have more patience with people, because usually those two things don't mix well with me. I'm a loner for life. If people wonder why they don't see me there, well, there's one place you can look for me. Home. I don't go out. I'm pale right now as Dracula. right now because the sun is like, oh my God, what is this fat? What is this giant ball of hair doing outside? What is this? What is this giant ball? I'm trying to limit my language here. I usually use more colorful language, but I'm limiting myself in terms of protecting my ears because I made a promise to the one above that I was going to be a good Christian boy. So there. Laugh at me all you want. I don't care. Anyway, so I like to be alone. I like all that stuff, but I also realize that I don't live in this planet alone and I'm not an island to myself. Especially when the revelation came that, I was already married a few years in my marriage and also a father of a young baby. Because I think Emma was like maybe 3 or 4 when I discovered that, or less than that. 3, I think she was 3 when I discovered that. And yeah, I was like, well, I gotta get my stuff together, And I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm very far away from that, and like it's something that happened this past podcast, 124 of the Husky by the Booze, when Jonathan corrected me about the gate in Wembley Stadium, that I had said that it was the highest gate in wrestling in recent history. He had to correct me. No, actually, in WrestleMania at 32 in Arlington Stadium, they did way more than that. And I honestly, I mean, I was responding back not because I was because I had the numbers right. It's just that this is the danger that most of us do. You hear the same thing over and over again. You just regurgitate the same information. That's exactly what I did. I regurgitated the same information that I had heard from someone else said, and I just repeated exactly what that person said. And I was hearing that the gate in Wembley Stadium for all in for AEW was the highest gate in wrestling in the ever, and it wasn't. And I just simply regurgitated that because that's what I heard. And not everything you hear is true. Not everything that you listen out there is true. Like, you got to do your own legwork. And kudos to Jonathan that he actually did the legwork right there and called my bluff, called my BS. Well, not BS because I didn't do it intentionally lying. It's just I did it that I was sure that was the information. I know he didn't do it. And I'm not saying he did it. He did it just to, call in my face. He was just fact checking that thing to make sure. And thankfully he did. And I was wrong. But what I'm saying with that is that, you don't know everything. And what the heck does this have to do with being an introvert? I segue from one side to the other. The thing about being an introvert is this. Socially awkward, yet here I am having a conversation all by myself, just recording it on my computer, which is a contradiction. It's like the invisible boy from Mystery Men. I don't know who ever recalls that movie. That's from 1999. Ben Stiller, Janine Garofalo, Paul Rubens, rest in peace, and a bunch of other guys were in that movie too. Greg Kinnear, a bunch of other guys. So there was this one kid. His name was Invisible Boy, and he could only turn invisible when nobody was looking, which I always found funny because, like, how can you tell? And when you see the movie, he actually does turn invisible when nobody's looking. So nobody can look, then he turns invisible. So I guess that sums up my social skills. When nobody's listening, I turn into the most talkative person in the world because I'm used to it. Being an introvert all the time and just talking to myself. Whereas if I start talking with people, I'll just like stone face and not show emotions. While in my head, I'm playing like 18 different movies in my head. Which is kind of the gist of what being an INTJ is. Is like you just running movies in your head, scenarios in your head. You're just playing options and whatnot, which is basically my type of personality, which is the INTJ, which is, they call them, what was the name? God, I forgot the name. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm sorry. It's been a while since I did that personality test. But the thing is, I'm very analytical, and what surprises me most about my type of personality, they're the most um they're the most like that type of personality are more likely to be atheists because they're very pragmatic, they're very practical, they're very logical, like almost Vulcan like. And if you see Star Trek, you'll get the reference. If not, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm sorry, I'm a geek. That's basically my. If you want to talk to me, you talk geek language to me. That's how we can communicate. If not, then you can use the best thing after, which is the Bible. After that, we're like you want to talk sports to me? I'm like, I know a little. I know who the Yankees are. I know that there is a sport called football. But if you ask me, name all the players in the Giants, I'll be like, what's option B? I don't know. I'm a geek. I'm a geek. So anyway, my type of personality is very logic driven, and believing in God not necessarily goes hand in hand with logic, but to my life experiences so far, I gotta lean with the God thing. You don't want to lean into the God thing, fine. I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to show you. I'm no scholar. I'm no theologian. I don't know the Bible. I'm not a teacher. I don't have any kind of wisdom to tell you. I can only tell you by my experience and my experience alone. I tried the atheist thing for a good minute. Didn't jive in with me. It didn't jive in with me. It didn't. I found that in my opinion, I was standing in air. I was standing in midair. There was nothing to hold me the ground. And I granted some atheists might say the same thing about the God thing. I was like what, what, what are you doing? I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna. But the thing is, to me, God makes sense. Even as an introvert, even being my type of introvert. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible to be an introvert and believe in God. There might be others that do believe in God. There might be others that do trust in God. There must be others that don't have any problems with believing in God and being an introvert. I don't. So I'm one of those. But there might be some people out there that do have their problems with God. I don't know by why. I mean, maybe they don't find any sense in it. Maybe religion, they tried religion and religion gave them a swift kick in the behind. And maybe they dealt with a lot of liars or a lot of deceitful people in the church. Maybe some leaders, maybe some people that talk to them badly. I don't know. Pick whatever poison you want. What I do know is this. In my personal experience, and I can't speak for everyone, but in my personal experience, there is a God. For reasons that I do not have time to explain in detail. But for me, there is a God. Now, whatever the implications of that may be and how we unpack that logically, I don't know. That's one of the main things that I wrestle daily. Like, okay, there's a God. How do I explain that? I don't know. But I ride a plane all the time, and I don't know how that thing. Not all the time. Wow, look at me. I'm talking like I'm Ric Flair from 1986. No, what I mean is like you ride vehicles, and unless you study motor vehicles and you know how the engine works and all that other stuff, you just ride the damn thing. You just ride it. You're not thinking about like the combustible engine and all this other stuff the mechanical stuff that the vehicles. I mean, there was a time that you had to shift gears, and now you got automatic. You got automatic now. You know, transmission is automatic now. Before you had to do stick, but now you got automatic transmission, so you don't have to think about that. You just drive. You just put that lever in D and just go. You don't have to think about the transmission, when to do this, when to do that. You don't have to think about none of that stuff. You just go. So the same thing here with me. I just have to trust God. I can't think about how this whole thing works, because if you hang yourself in that, again, the analogy I was using, like if you do nothing, you get nothing. If you do something, you get something. With God, there is something. There is value to it. Like if you even if in the end of the day, there is no God. Let's say, for example, there is no God. If in the end of the day there is no God, then what did I lose? Nothing. I lived a decent life. I lived a life. I loved a woman. I had a kid. I loved that kid. I gave them love. I showed them love. What did I do wrong? Nothing. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But think of the alternative. If there is a God, and I'm right, we'll just leave it there in blank. Anyway, I've always said that we're going to do these things in 15 minutes, but I guess I like to talk a lot. Anyway, this has been episode 3 of the Husky Introvert Reliever. Remember, you can check this and other podcasts that we've done on huskybybluepod.com. Also check our TeePublic store. I think the link will be in the description of this podcast, where you can get all the t-shirts that yours truly has designed. Some of that will trickle down to me and will help out this endeavor, and hopefully this thing will keep on growing. Anyway, thank you for listening. Take care.